Hey guys, welcome to another Tutorial Tuesday. We're going to continue with our baby portrait today. I've got my 3 pencils ready that we're going to be using. I've got my 2H, my HB and my 2B pencil. We're going to start working around this darker area today. I've just tidied up a little bit. I didn't go too far after last week's lesson. And what we're going to do today is we're going to start really reinforcing these dark areas with the 2B and just start to bring in some value into the rest of the baby's face there. I've really liked seeing some of your progress work over on the Facebook page. If this is the first time that you've visited my channel, thanks so much for clicking. But don't forget to find us on Facebook. It's called Tutorial Tuesdays Beginners to Pros. And we've got loads of great artists on there, lots of beginners as well that are going through these stages step by step. And I'm just trying to teach you everything that I've learnt over the last few years. So I'm going to continue using the tapered stroke. I'm going to try and keep the picture of the baby in shot as much as I can. So just again starting in the darkest areas, holding this pencil quite high up so I'm not bearing down too close and scratching the tooth of the paper. Now what I would say, I think I've said it before in some of the videos, maybe put some paper underneath your hand here just to stop the paper getting too smudged and ingraining some of the value into the tooth of the paper. But obviously when you want to be looking at this, and this isn't going to be a piece of work that I'm going to be giving to anybody, so it doesn't matter if I smudge a little bit of value here and there. But if this was something you were doing for somebody, you were going to put on your wall or something, then I would advise you just putting something underneath your hand just to stop it smudging. Remembering to keep moving our paper so that you've got your best stroke. In my case, it's a stroke pulling towards me. Just see that you can make sure that the reference is in shot as best as we can, just so you can see the areas that I'm working. So I'm just bringing some value in here. I'm not going into the hairline yet. The hair will be a separate video where we talk about the pencils and the strokes that we use, and how we get a realistic looking hairline. So for now we're just it's just an extension of the sphere work. This baby's face is a spherical object, and like I said in last week's video, we're trying to make as many of these contours and curves as possible throughout the picture. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it look very realistic and vibrant. I've got my brush as well, so this is just a very soft brush, and we're just going to brush in some value every now and then. The technique that I'm teaching you doesn't require any blending, so we're not going to be using any blending stumps or tissue paper, Q-tips, things like that. I have done drawings in the past like that, but I just think that this pure method where we're just using the pencils and getting used to being able to use the pencils only without having the crutch of, I used to think it was a bit of a crutch. My initial drawings that I used to do, I used to use a tissue paper quite a lot, just to blend out any imperfections. And I wouldn't say that it's cheating, but this way is a much purer method, and it just allows you to have full control over the drawing, the entire drawing from sort of start to finish. If I want to start to erase some of this, I'm going to have absolutely no problem whatsoever erasing this, just using my kneaded eraser, which I've got to hand here. Make sure that I roll that into a ball before I start. So I'll have a ball, a rounded end, and I will also have a pointed end for taking out some finer details, which we will start to do as this starts to develop. Perhaps going to give this video a little bit more time today. I'm perhaps going to go for about a 45-minute video with this one, because the time does fly when we're starting to add this value, and it's actually one of the reasons why I love to draw, particularly later on at night when the wife and the children are all in bed. It's nice to just sit and just build value into a drawing. It's very therapeutic. So I'm using my 2H pencil here, reinforcing those darker edges, and remembering to turn my pencil. That way I don't need to sharpen. I don't think during this baby portrait yet. So what are we on? This is sort of the third lesson of the baby portrait. We're on sort of lesson 8 now. I don't think I've had to sharpen my pencils once, which is of course going to save you money in the long run, because you're not going to be needing to buy supplies as often. So you can see I've just gone in slightly too heavy with that initial first stroke there. So I'm just going to back up. I'm just going to take that out, because what I don't want is a darker mark there that is going to stand out and make the blending of the value look out of place. So again, I'm just looking for these darkest areas. This recess in here is going to be the darkest, because the top of the baby's lip here comes up and around, so we've got this contour. So I need to make this part in here the darkest, and I'm going to fade out and over. So we're going up and over like the brow of a hill. And similar here, we've got a slight indentation there, a slight crease. So I'm just going to add the value in here. And then we're just going to smooth it out and blend it out. I'm also going to start to put some value into these nostrils. And again, we've got very small spheres. So this 1, 2 and 3 there. So this is the area that's furthest away from the light in this corner here. So I'm going to start adding the value there. And I'm keeping my eye on the reference. So we're working in this area now here. I'm just adding this very first layer of 2H. I'm just trying to contour this nostril. It doesn't really matter which direction the light source is coming from. I know that this in here is going to be furthest away from that light source. So that's always going to be the darkest area under here too. If you've subscribed to the channel already, thanks so much for that. We've seen absolutely loads of new subscribers and loads of new members to the Facebook group. And I must say that it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know some of you on there and giving you some advice. We've got some brilliant artists as well in there. So it's really nice that some of you guys are chipping in and giving some advice as well. I know that the initial lessons can sometimes seem quite slow and it feels like you're not getting anywhere, but it's starting to pay off, and I can see in, certainly in some of the spheres that you've been drawing, some of the barrels, that you are getting to grips with this method, and I assure you, once you do get to grips with this method of drawing, it will be a really solid foundation then for you to go on to paint or use charcoal. Some of you might have seen some of my scribble art drawings that I like doing. So I release a scribble art drawing every Sunday. I call that Scribble Art Sundays. And it's the same principles as this, finding the direction of the light, working the lighter and the darker areas and trying to develop the contrast in both of those. In exactly the same way as we're doing with this. Obviously they don't look as realistic as something like this baby's going to, but you can get a real sense of depth and dimension even scribbling ink. So similar to the other nostril here, we're coming up and around, so I need to know where the darkest areas are, and this is all going to be covered with 2H, but I'm just laying down these initial areas in the darker areas so that, for one, I can get a sense of how this baby's going to look, and I can make any alterations early on before going too dark. I can kind of mould it accordingly. So I'm going to come in with some HB now in this, because this is definitely a darker area, and what you'll notice as I start to add HB into this, I'm probably now going to then need to darken up the nostrils, which is the process that we go through. I know some of you, when we were drawing the spheres, were asking questions about, am I going dark enough? I'm trying to go darker. And what I was saying to some of you was, sometimes you are dark enough, but it's the contrast that you need. So lightening up the lighter areas will then make the darker areas look darker, and you may well be dark enough if you do balance the values. And we're going to talk about balancing the values when we get a little bit further on. So I can now see, as I'm starting to add this HB to this this ridge underneath the nostril here, that I definitely need to start adding the 2B pencil, which is why I got the 2B pencil out and prepared it, especially for this lesson, because I knew that the 2B was going to be in need today. I think I've found some of you guys over on Instagram as well, so you can follow me and I'll follow back on Instagram. It's great to see some of your work and what you're getting up to. That's Artistic N1K. It's the same as the YouTube channel, so it'd be brilliant to connect with you on that as well. Send me your links to your Instagram or post them on the Facebook page, and I'll be sure to follow back. So I'm going for the 2B pencil now. So I've sharpened this, and I'm just going to start to darken up, and you'll really now start to see, as we start to lay this 2B pencil down, that we're going to start to get a sense of the shape of this baby, and we're going to start to ramp up the realism in these small areas. And it's incredible how just a slightly darker value in the correct areas can really start to pull some of the shapes forwards and push some things backwards, like the recess of this nostril in there. Constantly checking my reference image. So now we're starting to really get a lovely sense of this baby's nostrils, and you know, the light is not able to get up into this. And if you look at any reference image, if it's in a colour picture as well, the nostrils are always one of the darkest areas. The insides of the mouth, the nostrils, and the pupils are your darkest areas. And if you can make sure that you are keeping those dark, then you are going to satisfy the viewer's eye and make their brain believe that they're looking at something realistic. Perhaps it looks like a photograph. That's going to be our aim with this. I love drawing babies because you've got such light complexion with most of the babies, and you're going to get some babies with slightly darker complexion. But if you're drawing a lot of newborn babies that have got very pale skin, if they've got this dark hair, this striking dark hair, it's very easy to make the drawing look like a black and white photograph. So I think we're looking pretty good now on this nostril here. So I'm going to come in with this 2B into this mouth area and see if we can just start to pull this mouth forwards, obviously the lips forwards, and the inside of the mouth backwards, making sure that this is always still in frame so you guys can see it. It's been a real pleasure getting to this stage with some of you, and like I've been saying on the Facebook page, don't try and rush this. You know, if you're stuck on lesson 2, keep practicing. I'm whizzing through these lessons because I enjoy this part. This is where we really start to see, and you're going to be amazed, some of you, that you are going to be able to draw something that really does look like the reference image, and it's going to be something you're proud of, and hopefully some of you are going to be able to start selling some of your work, because I think when I started 3 years ago, I had no idea that anybody would ever buy a piece of art from me, but particularly over the Christmas period, I sold an awful lot of art, and it's a wonderful feeling. So I'm coming back to my 2H pencil now, and I'm just going to start adding some more value in and around this nose area. Now I've got some of the dark areas in there with the HB pencil, I can now start to build some value in. And the beauty with this method is, even though I am using a 2H pencil now, I can still darken up the areas under this nostril with the 2H pencil, because I've never pressed on with this pencil as hard as I can. So there's always what we would say value left in the pencil. And that's another really great tip for you to have, that you can still get value out of your lighter pencils using this method. Again, in the early days when I was first learning to draw, I would almost press as hard as I can with each pencil. And two things happen there. You are buying yourself new pencils all the time because you're sharpening every 5 minutes. And B, it's very, very difficult to take value out because you've almost damaged the tooth of the paper. A lot of the time you've gone too heavy-handed. So I can see I need to come much darker now. I'm going to go in with the HB pencil around this eye area here. Because we've got quite an indentation in there. This is obviously this little baby's eye socket, and this is the eyeball underneath. That's again a spherical object. So we need to get this in place now. I'm going to do the same on the right hand eye as we're looking at it, the baby's left hand eye, but as we're looking at it in the camera, it's the right hand eye. So you can already see just from this light application of HB that we're now starting to see something appearing underneath this area here. I'm going to continue. I'm just looking at the reference image and it's coming up over this point here, and I guess this is where this baby's eyebrows are going to be sitting, somewhere up here, as he or she gets a little bit older and this hair starts to grow. And we need some value around this side. Just with this simple application of this HB, once we start to then come into this with the 2H, we're going to still be able to maintain this darker area, and we're going to be able to balance it as we go. Now I'm going to put some HB up into this area as well. Go into the left side, the baby's right eye. And your initial layers of 2H and HB look quite dark on a very white background. Obviously this paper hasn't got an awful lot of value anywhere. But the crazy thing is, as we develop this, we're going to be finding that even this HB is probably not going to be dark enough in these areas. And it's something that, as artists, as learning goes, one of the things that I've found is people are really scared to go too dark. They think they're going to ruin the picture. But that's definitely something that I've gotten over. I mean, you could draw a very good representation of this baby with charcoal, which is black. And I'm sure it looked very, very realistic. So don't be afraid of going dark. So I'm using this 2H now, and I'm just coming into this recess of the eye here. And we're just going to start moulding this eye socket. Just lightly touching the surface of the paper. That feeling that we've got an aeroplane taking off. Landing and then taking off. So just touching the runway and then taking back off again. So we haven't got these harsh lines. I'm trying to lay them down as close as possible, but I'm not worried if my first pass hasn't closed all of the lines off. I'm not too worried. I just have another pass, maybe go at a different angle. So if I come at this angle now, it's almost a cross-hatching. It's not as crude as some of the pen and ink cross-hatching that we see. And what I mean by crude is, and I really like the art style actually, so it's not anything derogatory towards it, but the cross-hatching, you leave a lot of open space between the lines, so you see a lot of paper underneath it. And again, you can get some realistic looking work with it, but not entirely realistic in the sense that we want to try and make this. So we are trying to group these lines together, but you know, over the duration of your drawing, we're going to have hundreds and hundreds of these, thousands of these lines, but they all blend into one. And at any moment, if I make a mistake, I can just rewind. I can get the kneaded eraser. I mean, very rarely do I even need to use a normal eraser, an electric eraser, or anything like that, unless it's for details. So I might be wanting to take out a very white area, maybe the highlight in an eye. But it's this almost laborious method of covering the paper with these strokes that the end result is breathtaking sometimes. I mean, I've seen some work that people have done that uses this type of method where we're just using the pencils, and they're indistinguishable from a photograph. You know, they really are good, but they take time. It's like anything. So still using this 2H, even going over the darker HB pencil that we have there, I'm still bringing in some of that value from my harder pencils. And what it's also doing is it's giving me a better coverage. It's going into the tooth of the paper, so we're not going to have this grainy look. I know some of you, when you were drawing your spheres, were struggling with the paper you were using. Some of it was too grainy. The tooth of the paper was almost too open, and I get that. But this paper that I'm using, the Strathmore Bristol, this is the smooth. I use the vellum as well sometimes. You can cover the tooth really well, get a lovely rich coverage. We're going to build the value up just by going up and down the grades of pencil. So into the 2H, into the HB. See, I think we need a little bit more value now in these lips. So I'm coming up to my HB pencil now. And because I've got some value in there with the 2B pencil, I'm not too worried now that using my HB is going to lose the definition and lose where this baby's mouth, the hole in the mouth, or where the mouth's open is, which is always the danger if I'm using the same grade of pencil. So if I'd have only gone into the HB here, and then I'm coming in with the HB on the lips, that's always a slight worry that I'm going to lose the finer details. And I can see some little creases in here as well. And we're just going to add them in, understanding again where the darkest areas are. Now you can see we don't want a definite line between the actual skin around the mouth and the lip itself. It kind of subtly goes in. I don't want this baby to look like he or she has got makeup on, or lip liner or something like that. Or even as adults, you do get a little bit more definition between the lip and the skin area. But this baby hasn't got that, so we certainly don't want a line around here. Definitely trying to keep away from lines. cartoon work sometimes, yeah, lines are very effective ways of portraying shape. But for something realistic, we don't see people walking around with a line around, unless of course it's makeup and it's something that they've tried to achieve. But your average looking face has no lines. Creases and wrinkles, yes. Lines around nose, no. Lines around lips, no. Lines around teeth, no. We've got a little highlight under here on this part of the lip, and I can just see now that I've got the slight angle of that slightly wrong. So I'm just going to erase some of the 2B pencil just by dabbing on, and I just need it's a small V shape in there. And it's incredible how I've just managed to take away some of that value, because this method is allowing me to do that. I'm not pressing on hard. Let's get a few of these wrinkles in. I'm going to come in with the 2H pencil and just, that's a little bit bright for me. That's not how bright it is in the drawing itself. Getting some shaded areas, and we've definitely got some lighter areas there that I'm going to make sure that I keep quite light. That's possibly a slightly wetter part of the lip where the light's shining on it and just catching it slightly differently. And again, it's those little details that we can really bring out and emphasize that's going to make this look wonderful. So I'm just leaving a slight patch there. As you can see on this here, I'm just leaving it and building the value up around it, and then I'll take some out. But we're getting a lovely shape to the mouth. It's looking like it's a hole in the face, which is what it is, and holes generally are darker than the surrounding area. That's what we're looking for. I'm going to darken those eyes up again soon. So it's amazing. You can see as these eyes were, or the lines of the eyes where they're closed, were the darkest area on the drawing, the same as this around the hand. But now we've brought the value up here and here, we now know we need to bring this up. And this is why I said I think it might have been last week's lesson, it could have been the week before, I don't like the technique where people will complete one area to completion because I can't balance the values throughout the drawing, and it means that if I've gone slightly too dark in one area here, I've then got to bring the darkness up in the end, the rest of the drawing. So this is the method that I prefer to do, and we start seeing the drawing coming to life. And again, it's the sphere. This is the darkest area. It's coming around. This is going to be lighter. I'm not using different pressures with each of the strokes. I'm just building the layers up. So if I want an area to be darker, I just go over it a few more times. Okay, I'm going to just bring some 2B into this shadowed area now, because this shadowed area for me is going to be extremely important. It's definitely going to be one of the standout features. Although it isn't a feature, we've got to get the value in here. And what this is going to do, this is then going to determine how dark we need to go with the rest of the face and the body itself. So just bringing some 2B into this. It's just lifting the face away from the body. So it's giving us that separation. We spoke about hard and soft lines, and this is definitely a hard line. This is a separation between the face and the body. Obviously our head doesn't sit flush with our body. So again, this is another recess that we need to emphasize. I'm just going to lightly just try and get a feel for where this shadow is sitting under here. It comes underneath the crease of this finger and then down almost at a 45-degree angle. Just putting that in just so that I know where to bring the value out to. I'm not just going to go straight in with the 2B, I'm going to bring the HB pencil in now. So I'm just coming back in with the 2H pencil again, and I'm just layering and layering. I can't emphasize enough how important it is that we just keep layering. So don't be afraid to bring the value up with the H pencils, the 2H, maybe even the 4H and HB. But you can see now as we're darkening this shadowed area, it's really starting to give us a sense of how much value we're going to need in certain areas, certainly of the cheeks and these hands. And this is, again, one of the reasons why I really like to just build up slowly, take our time. Every single stroke is on purpose. We're not leaving anything to chance. We're not smudging and pushing value into areas that we don't need it and then having to erase it and ruin the paper. We are building it up gradually. This is still my darkest area right underneath here. Even if we can't quite see that on the reference image that we've printed out, we know that this under here is always going to be the darkest area. Now that doesn't mean you need to go to a 6B or a 9B pencil just because it's the darkest area. It just needs to be the darkest area relative to the other parts of the drawing. Remembering from our sphere exercise that the shadow, as it ends here, it's fuzzy. So it's not a hard edge. So we're going to try and represent that with our drawing. We're going to fade out around the edge, which will be slightly easier once we get a little bit more value in and around the rest of the baby's chest area. But we don't want a really hard, subtle edge. I definitely don't want it to look like this edge. This is our hard edge, and this is our softer edge. I'm actually going to brush some of that value now away from the chin into the baby's chest area, and it might just give us enough value there to start getting an understanding of how much more we need, where we might need it. Coming in with my HB again. Again, just working out from the darkest area, and again you can see we're getting more value. We're making this area darker than we were with just the 2B. So I've gone into the 2H, back into the 2B, into the HB, maybe then back down to the 2H again, being patient, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. With the outcome. We're going to make this baby look just like the reference image. So I'm coming into the side of the cheek. Now I can start to see, I want to work in this area because we've got the contrast under here. I want to bring this out now. We're going to start seeing the shape of this baby's face taking place, or beginning to. So I definitely need value in here. So I'm, again, with my 2H pencil, I'm fading up. And what I might do is I might just bring some value up into this lighter area. This is on the sphere, this is the lightest area that we were using the kneaded eraser to try and bring out the lighted area, the highlight. Well, this is where the light's catching it in the same sense. So I can bring some value in there, and then I can take it away with the kneaded eraser and repeat that process. If need be. And I do tend to just jump around the picture. I'm working on this chin here, but I just wanted to try and bring a little bit more value into the side of that face there. Okay, let's get some value into this area here. See if we can make this our next area that we're going to try and develop. Again, I want soft edges with these values because it's a contour, it's a rounded area. It isn't a harder edge. We've got some very subtle changes of value there, so I've got some very light areas, some mid-tones in there as well as the darker areas, but nothing here is as light as this. So I'm just making sure I've got that. We will go over and balance all of the values up later on once we've got most of the drawing done. We go in with some of our darker pencils and the kneaded eraser and move things around, but we can plot them out now just to give ourselves almost a bit of a map where things are, how things are lying, and just make that. That's a really magical stage, I call it, when we really start adding details if need be. There are some drawings, this drawing's not got a huge amount of detail, but there are some drawings that have got lots of detail, and I really enjoy that stage, adding the much darker values, the darker bits and bobs, nothing too much, but just those subtle darker areas and subtle lighter areas. It's where we would start adding highlights into the eyes of the portrait, or those finer details. I would guess at sort of the rate we're going, that's probably going to be around about lesson, what are we now, lesson 8. I'd say probably lesson 11. I'm hoping that we're going to get most of the values down in lesson 9, and then the hair in lesson 10. So 11 or 12, hopefully. But again, there's no rush. It is what it is. We go as fast or as slow as we need to. And don't be afraid to pause the video, rewind it, come back to it another day. You'll all find the best time for you for drawing. I do prefer to drawing the day, but other commitments and family commitments means that the only time I do really get to sit down and really focus is late at night. I'm going to brush this again, just get some value into this cheek. Now I'm going to bring the kneaded eraser into this chin area and just highlight that out slightly. So I'm making sure it's nice and rounded there, and I'm just bouncing it off the paper. And looking where it's lightest up into that area there, and it fades down a little bit. I might even bring a little bit of value out of this cheek area here. And let's bring a little bit out here as well. And you'll be amazed to see that there is value in these areas, even though we've not really laid any down. The brushing and the nature of these pencils, I guess all pencils will, graphite will move around, but with these Caran D'ache grafwood pencils it does tend to move around a little bit more than certainly the Faber-Castell that I've used quite a bit. They're much harder. If you're working with charcoal or anything like that, you'll understand how much the medium moves around, and it can be quite messy at times. So I'm just closing these cheeks in, making sure that we've still got the darker areas. We don't want to lose those, because I am still only using the 2H pencil here. We've got that slight crease. This will turn into this young baby's smile lines as he or she gets older. You can see them on the newborn baby's face. They're almost imperceivable. They're not quite anything yet. But again, it's those subtle changes of value that going in with a 2B pencil, bearing down onto the paper and not giving yourself any opportunity to back up means that we get a representation of this baby, but not a true reflection. See, I think we've gone too dark there. I'm going to take some of this value out, so I'm going to make a small point, and you'll just see how easy I can remove some of this value from around there. Dead simple. And again, even with the eraser, everything's on purpose. Every tap of the pencil, every tap of the rubber, every stroke, it's on purpose. Now you see, I think because I'd drawn the darker line in on the reference image, it's slightly thrown me. Let's darken up this crease of this eye. So I'm going to come in with the 2H pencil now, and I'm just going to bring in some more value there. Again, this is going to be one of the darkest areas. This is what's going to create the contrast. It's what's going to make the skin look pale and the shadows dark. And you only need 2 or 3 of these on your entire drawing. If you get them right, it really sets the drawing off. If you get them wrong, it makes the viewer just not quite believe that what they're seeing is a real representation. Just going again over these nostrils, just reinforcing the darker areas as we develop this. Come into the mouth again, because like I say, as we build the value up in the other areas, the darker parts don't look dark. Just a bit of a darker line underneath this nose here. So we're sort of getting towards 45 minutes, so I'm going to leave you with that. What I want you to do between now and next week is just start to bring a little bit more value into some of the forehead using your 2H pencil, maybe a little bit of HB. Keep reinforcing your dark areas, and if you've subscribed to the channel, great. If you've not and you've got this far, go and hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to turn the notifications on. That means you won't miss any of the videos that are dropping on Tuesdays. Come and join our group on Facebook. We will welcome you with open arms. And I hope you enjoy drawing some more of this little baby. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Hit subscribe, smack the notifications button, follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.